Tomorrow is a moment of truth for the Republicans here in the Senate. Are they going to bring health care costs down? Or will they sit by and let premiums explode for millions of Americans?
Bottom line, we have got to help the American people with their health care costs.
This is Today as It Happened. Good Wednesday evening to you. I'm Patrick Terpstra, here with your chronological look at the biggest events and stories of the day. From the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony in Oslo to the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates as inflation remains high. But first, let's take a look at some of our other top headlines from the day. Students returned to campus today after a deadly shooting at Kentucky State University. Police say a 48-year-old man shot two people, killing one student. He has been arrested and is being held without bond on charges of murder and first-degree assault. No word on a motive, but the school's president called the shooting a senseless tragedy. Meanwhile, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear asked the public for prayers and to pray for a world where these things don't happen. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Ukraine could be ready for elections within 3 months if the U.S. and partners can guarantee a safe vote during wartime. Zelensky was responding to President Trump's comments questioning Ukraine's democracy and suggesting the Ukrainian leader was using the war as an excuse not to hold elections. Zelensky says two big issues must be addressed: security during Russian missile attacks and how military personnel would vote. He'd also need to change the rule that says elections cannot legally happen under martial law. Ukraine has been under martial law since Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022. The Pacific Northwest is getting ready for another round of heavy rain today after a powerful storm battered the region Tuesday. This is flooding from the western Oregon city of Tillamook. The city has seen over 5.5 inches of rain over the past 3 days. 3 inches falling just in the last 24 hours. The storms have caused power outages, flooding, and school closures in parts of Oregon and Washington. Forecasters warn the worst is still to come, with major rivers expected to crest later this week. And you might call this an early Christmas miracle. Dashcam video shows a small twin-engine plane landing on top of a car on Interstate 95 in Brevard County, Florida on Monday. The driver of the car taken to a nearby hospital with minor injuries, according to Brevard County Fire Rescue. The pilot and passenger in the plane were not injured, according to Florida Highway Patrol. The dramatic incident captured on dashcam video from another vehicle on the highway. Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado is missing today's Nobel Peace Prize ceremony in Oslo. Machado won the prize for her work for more democracy in Venezuela. Her daughter will accept the award on her behalf. Scripps News international correspondent John Beaver is live in London for us this morning. Good morning to you, John. Tell us more about the ceremony.
Yeah, the ceremony is just wrapping up now. And as you say, Machado was not there in person to receive the award. She has been in hiding for months now, only being seen once, and that was to protest against the inauguration of President Nicolas Maduro as he started his third term after what she and her opposition politician colleagues say was a stolen election. So she has been in hiding. The Venezuelan state have said that if she travelled, they would consider her a fugitive from justice as well. They have been chasing after her for many months, as I say, and for many years she has had threats against her and claims that she has been involved in all sorts of plots against the Maduro regime. Of course, she says she's standing up for democracy, and that's what happened with the Nobel Prize Committee awarding her the Peace Prize for her fight for democracy in Venezuela. She has not arrived in Oslo, Norway, for the ceremony itself, but it has been confirmed that she is travelling and she is going to be in Oslo. They think at some stage in the coming hours, possibly tomorrow morning local time. So she is travelling. She will get to reunite with her family, who she hasn't seen for 16 months. She is travelling at huge personal risk to herself, but she wasn't able to make the ceremony itself, that, as I say, is just wrapping up as we speak. What we did have, though, was her daughter, Anna, speaking on her behalf. And she was saying things like Venezuela faces a long march towards freedom. They have to reclaim their own destiny, and saying that freedom is not something you wait for.
And John, we've been seeing video, just as you mentioned, of her daughter accepting that award on her behalf as it just happened just a short time ago. Tell us a little bit about the international reaction to Machado's win.
Yeah, well, Machado has always said that the most recent elections were stolen by the Maduro regime, and that is something that the international community very much agree with. The vast majority of the international community believe that election was stolen and that Maduro is clinging on to power, and that any semblance of democracy in Venezuela has disappeared, and he is now very much running an authoritarian regime. So that is something the international community has long been behind. Machado herself, when she was awarded the prize, when it was made clear that she was going to be given the prize, I should say, back in October, she thanked US President Donald Trump for his support, and said that it was the support of him and of Americans and America's allies that gave them hope for the future, that they would be able to restore democracy in Venezuela itself. Of course, all of this comes at a time there is increased US military presence in the Caribbean, increased US interest in Venezuela itself. Of course, President Trump's allies have said that Machado shouldn't be aligning herself so closely with the US president, but Machado herself has thanked Donald Trump in the past, and certainly we're expecting to hear more from her when she arrives in Oslo at some point. And as I say, making that journey despite huge personal risk to herself. But she ended the speech that was delivered by her daughter on her behalf, vowing that Venezuela will breathe again.
All righty, Scripps News international correspondent John Beaver, live from London. John, thank you so much. Coming up on Today As It Happened.
There has been ICE activity in our community, and if a child who is brown, who was born into a refugee family today in the Chicagoland area, they would probably be in hiding, if not already disappeared.
And later.
I mean, it's considered about the worst country in the world, right? They have no military, they have no nothing, they have no parliament.
Welcome back to Today As It Happened. Let's check back in on our daily briefing of today's top stories. We continue to follow breaking news. A federal judge has ordered the Trump administration to end deployment of National Guard troops in Los Angeles. This comes 6 months after the Trump administration federalized California's National Guard in June, deploying about 4,000 troops. That was in response to protests in the city over immigration raids. Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom called the move unprecedented and illegal, and the case has been unfolding in the courts for months. The federal judge is now ordering the Guard to be returned to state control. Anti-ICE nativity scenes are popping up across the country and sparking a nationwide conversation. In one of the displays, where Jesus, Mary, and Joseph would normally be, there are signs that say, "ICE was here," suggesting they were detained by ICE agents. Scripps News national correspondent Katia Tubman is live in New York. Katia, this issue has people divided. What can you tell us?
That's right, Patrick. And you might be doing a double take at certain churches you pass by this holiday season. That's because politically themed, specifically anti-ICE nativity scenes are popping up across the country, as you just mentioned. Now, the scene typically is set up in front of a church around Christmas, depicting the Holy Family, Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus in a manger, typically along with angels, shepherds, and the three wise men. Well, this season, a number of churches are retelling this story to make a political statement. Like this nativity scene scene outside of a Catholic parish in Dedham, Massachusetts. You'll see that Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus are missing. They're replaced by this sign that reads, "ICE was here," and that the Holy Family is safe in the sanctuary of our church. Then we go over to Illinois, and we see this nativity scene just outside of Chicago, and the Holy Family here is also missing from the display, and in their place is a sign that reads, "Due to ICE activity in our community, the Holy Family is in hiding." And just about less than an hour away from that church, the Holy Family is actually in the nativity scene as seen here, but baby Jesus is zip-tied, resting in an emergency blanket, separated from his parents by a wire fence, and Mary and Joseph are wearing gas masks, and the Romans are wearing makeshift vests labeled ICE. Now, in a Facebook post, the church said specifically that this installation is not subtle because the crisis it addresses is not abstract. The Holy Family were refugees, and the post goes on to say that telling this familiar story is a way to show what migrants are going through today, and their hope is to restore the story's radical edge and ask what it means to celebrate the birth of a refugee. Now, going forward, we are looking at these nativity scenes popping up as faith leaders continue to take to the front lines in the battle between immigrant communities and the Trump administration's immigration agenda. They also come a month after the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops issued a special message for the first time in 12 years opposing, quote, indiscriminate mass deportation and calling for an end to dehumanizing rhetoric and violence, whether directed at immigrants or at law enforcement. And this morning we spoke with Reverend Abby Holcomb, the pastor at Urban Village Church just outside of Chicago, and she put up the nativity scene there showing the Holy Family as missing. And here's what she said about the decision and whether it is political or not.
I was very intentional when I made the sign to just say the facts. There has been ICE activity in our community. And if a child who is brown, who was born into a refugee family today in the Chicagoland area, they would probably be in hiding, if not already disappeared. And that's not a political statement. That's just stating the facts. If that's a political statement, then Jesus's life was political.
Now, Patrick, as we head further into the holiday season and churches continue to stand by the sanctuary status of their cities or of their houses of worship, it's likely we'll see more political displays or statements. Patrick?
Before we let you go, I did want to ask you one question. What has the response to these nativity scenes been?
Well, Patrick, ICE hasn't been happy about it. We're looking towards Dedham, for example, in Massachusetts. ICE acting director Todd Lyons reacted to that nativity scene, the one where the family is missing and replaced by the sign that reads, "ICE was here." He called the pastor an activist reverend and also said that the actions of the activist reverend are absolutely abhorrent and adding to a dangerous narrative responsible for assaults on ICE officers. Also, in response to that parish's display, the Catholic Archdiocese of Boston told the church to take down the sign regarding ICE, but the church's pastor says that the nativity scene is in line with the U.S. Catholic bishop's message, which I just said, on immigration, and that the display has received overwhelming support from its parishioners. Patrick?
All right, this will continue to play out with Christmas, of course, 2 weeks away. Scripps News national correspondent Katia Tubman live in New York for us. Katia, thank you so much for your report.
President Trump pitched his economic agenda in Northeast Pennsylvania Tuesday night. Now, the remarks at times weaved into a campaign-style speech about immigrants, specifically targeting Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and Somalians.
She comes from a country where, it's considered about the worst country in the world, right? They have no military, they have no nothing, they have no parliament. They don't know what the hell the word parliament means. They have nothing. They have no police. They police themselves. They kill each other all the time.
Now, the remarks come nearly 1 year into Trump's second term, and as voters look ahead to the 2026 midterm elections, but also they come as the cost of living is top of mind for many Americans. Scripps News White House correspondent Haley Bull is live now to help us sort through that speech. So, Haley, what stood out to you from the president's remarks last night?
Yeah, Maritza, President Trump touting his economic agenda, saying he has no higher priority than making America affordable again, he said. And the president doubled down on a message we have increasingly been hearing out of this White House, blaming Democrats for high prices and crediting the Trump administration with lowering them. The president proclaiming their, quote, crushing inflation, though it has slightly ticked up in recent months, and polling shows that Americans remain concerned about the economy and prices. The president specifically touted action items from his administration, including tax cuts to kick in next year, a recent farm aid package, the launch of Trump accounts for kids, and defended his tariff agenda. And we've understood from previous conversations with a senior administration official that, that they feel that once things start kicking in, they will see things continue to move in a positive direction. Now, the president specifically honed in on criticizing, though, the word affordability, but he said he agrees that, quote, the prices were too high, but didn't acknowledge the economic hardship some Americans may currently be facing. The president saying this.
They use the word affordability, and that's their only word. They say affordability, and everyone says, oh, that must mean Trump has high prices. No, our prices are coming down tremendously.
And Maritza, this all comes, as you mentioned, as the midterms inch closer after the president was elected with the economy top of minds for many voters, an issue that remains top of minds for so many Americans. And the president, in his remarks, acknowledged an effort to help in the midterms. This speech starts more domestic travel, we understand, for the president and other administration officials. We are told it will include key battleground states with cabinet members, also in other impacted communities. And new today, we are learning the vice president is also expected to travel to Allentown, Pennsylvania next week, where a spokesperson said he will emphasize affordability. He is expected, we are told, to echo the president's message on the economy and cost of living, while at the same time, a spokesperson tells us emphasizing the administration's focus on affordability, touting the work that they have done, in their view, to help on this issue, Maritza.
All right, Scripps News White House correspondent Haley Bull live for us. We thank you.
Up next on Today As It Happens.
College campus is pretty safe for us and all that. It's real comforting and it feel like home, but it's crazy that this had to happen on campus. And we pay too much money for this kind of stuff to be taking place at this school.
You're watching Today As It Happened, Scripps News' rundown of the biggest events and stories of the day. Let's jump right in.
A third judge has ordered the grand jury records from the Epstein files be unsealed. U.S. District Judge Richard Berman ruled the materials from Epstein's criminal case should be publicly disclosed. Now, this comes weeks after Congress passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act. This is the third and final ruling on the Justice Department's motions to lift restrictions. Now, the law requires that the DOJ disclose those documents to the public by December 19th. Students returned to campus today after a deadly shooting at Kentucky State University. Police say a 48-year-old man shot 2 people, killing 1 student. And right now, the search is on for answers on how and why this happened. Scripps News Group's Drew Ammon is live now from the campus of Frankfort, Kentucky. So, Drew, what do we know about what happened? Where does the investigation stand?
Yeah, we can tell you there have been a few new developments in this case as of this morning, and one of those being the name of the victim. Now, I do want to pan over and show you the campus here. Kentucky State University, just over 1,000 students, just over 2,000 students, rather. We can tell you that the Franklin County coroner identified 19-year-old Dejon Fox Jr. from Indianapolis as the person who was shot and killed at KSU on Tuesday. Fox and another victim who was stable but in critical condition were both students. It was finals week here at Kentucky State. Now, after the shooting, the university canceled all activities and classes for the rest of the week. We did catch up with one grad student in Frankfort who said he got an alert on his phone yesterday about the shooting.
College campus is pretty safe for us and all that. It's real comforting and it feel like home, but it's crazy that this had to happen on campus. And we pay too much money for this kind of stuff to be taking place at this school.
The school has made counseling services available as well. Now, in terms of other developments, we have been around much of Frankfurt today, speaking with several people involved. But we have learned a little bit in terms of the suspected shooter. So we'll talk about that right now because we did some digging on the suspected shooter, 48-year-old Jacob Bard. We know he's from Indiana as well, but doesn't have much of a criminal history. In terms of that digging we did also request an interview with Jacob Bard. He has declined. Again, he is now due in court tomorrow here in Frankfurt to answer to the charges against him, murder and assault. We'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you so much. Drew Ammon, live for us from Frankfurt, Kentucky. We thank you.
And now, let's take a look at some of our other top headlines of the day.
And Luigi Mangione returned to a Manhattan courtroom for the sixth day today. He's accused of killing Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare. Now, today's testimony comes after the release of body camera footage showing police confronting Mangione at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, 1 year ago yesterday. The court now examining whether the arrest was legal, specifically whether police needed a warrant to search Mangione's backpack and whether officers read Mangione his Miranda rights properly. In other headlines, the fiancé of a man who died on a Royal Caribbean cruise ship has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the company. It alleges crew members served 35-year-old Michael Virgil at least 33 alcoholic drinks, then tackled him and stood on top of him after he became agitated. Now, this lawsuit is asking for unspecified damages and a jury trial. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner ruled Virgil's death a homicide, citing mechanical asphyxia and alcohol intoxication.
Coming up on Today As It Happened.
We've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, a large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually. And other things are happening, so.
We're glad you're back with Today As It Happened. I'm Patrick Terpstra here with your daily rundown of today's top stories.
New today, President Trump speaking with his European counterparts about a peace proposal for Ukraine. That's according to 10 Downing Street. This all comes as the war in Eastern Europe draws closer to its fourth year, and as the death toll in the war continues to grow higher. Scripps News White House correspondent Haley Bull joins us now live from the White House with the latest. So Haley, what do we know right now?
Yeah, Maritza, this marks continued conversation between the United States and its allies amid those efforts to end the war between Russia and Ukraine that have yet to produce an agreement agreeable to both sides. President Trump appeared to speak with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer today, according to 10 Downing Street, which noticed the British leader also spoke to his French and German counterparts to discuss the U.S.-led peace talks. And this comes on the heels of those three European leaders meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, as the U.S. in recent weeks has worked to refine a peace proposal in conversations with both Ukraine and Russia that initially garnered criticism as favoring Russia. Now, Zelensky saying today that the, quote, 20 points for ending the war form a fundamental document. We are actively working on the key steps, and they must be doable steps. He described two documents stemming from this, one on security and economy, noting this week he met with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, who has been involved in international negotiations, and Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, on reconstruction and economic recovery. Now, this all comes after Zelensky, according to reports, reaffirmed that Ukraine does not want to cede territories. The president also touching on Ukraine a number of times this week. We pressed him earlier this week on whether his team would stay engaged in conversations. Listen.
And then on Russia and Ukraine, obviously your administration has been having talks with each side. Given that there is no peace deal at this point, will your administration stay engaged in those talks to effort a peace deal?
We just want to see people stop from being killed. You know, we don't, as you know, Joe Biden gave them $350 billion. You know, and I gave them nothing. I gave them, well, I did give them javelins at the beginning and knocked out a hell of a lot of attacks. But, and Obama gave sheets. Remember, Obama gave sheets and I gave javelins. But no, we have We have a great situation going over there, except for one problem. You got a lot of people dying, and I want to see that stop.
And Maritza, the president also told Politico in an interview this week it wasn't correct that he may walk away from Ukraine, but added, quote, "It's not exactly wrong," going on to say they have to play ball. And it comes as in that same interview, the president said he believed Russia was in a stronger negotiating position and had the upper hand. And certainly we have seen European and the Ukrainians closely consult on this amid these U.S.-led efforts, Maritza.
All right, Haley Bull reporting for us from the White House. Thank you so much. Right now, we want to go live to the president who is speaking and just announced that the Trump administration has seized an oil tanker off of the Venezuelan coast. Let's listen.
An interesting day from the standpoint of news. As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, a large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually. And other things are happening, so you'll be seeing that later, and you'll be talking about that later with some other people. Very excitingly for me and for the country, we've just launched the Trump Gold Card. It was about 30 minutes from now. The site goes up, and all funds go to the United States government. Could be a tremendous amount of money. It'll also be able to have people like this keep, as an example, just one example, there are a lot of examples, people just buying them.
Coming up on Today As It Happened, amid ongoing pressure from President Donald Trump, the Federal Reserve lowered interest rates on Wednesday. Stay with us for Scripps News correspondent Maura Barris reporting from outside the Federal Reserve on what it all means for consumers and how it could impact the wider economy. That's after the break. Welcome back to Today's It Happened, Scripps News' debrief of our top stories of the day. Let's jump right back in.
The United States could start requiring some travelers to provide up to 5 years of their social media history before they enter the U.S. The proposal would affect travelers from 42 countries on the visa waiver program. That includes the United Kingdom, Germany, Israel, and South Korea. Now, this policy would significantly expand social media screening for international visitors. Critics already raising concerns about privacy and comparing the policy to authoritarian practices. Listen to this story. You might be paying more for your groceries than your neighbor, even if you've bought the same things. A new investigation reveals that Instacart is using artificial intelligence to charge different customers different prices for the exact same groceries. The investigations by Consumer Reports found some products varied by as much as 23% from one customer to the next. That same basket of groceries ranged from $114 to $124 at one Seattle Safeway. Big news today, the Federal Reserve cutting its key interest rate by a quarter point for the third time in a row. That brings the interest rate down to about 3.6% now. The decision, though, not unanimous. Scripps News business and technology correspondent Maura Barrett is live from just outside the Federal Reserve. So Maura, let's talk about what this decision will mean for all of us and for our wallets.
Well, the market is looking at it optimistically. Just a minute or two after the close right now, we're seeing the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 surging. The S&P 500 actually heading for a record close. The Dow up about 500 points. And so they're reacting to, the market reacting to this decision to cut interest rates, especially looking ahead. The market actually betting that there's more easing ahead next year. So again, an optimistic reaction there when it comes to the stock market. And that's because a majority of the Federal Reserve board members are betting that easing rates will help with the weakening labor market. This means that they're acknowledging that at least for right now, inflation is okay, though it is a lot higher than they're saying that they want it to be.
The Federal Reserve cutting interest rates again on Wednesday.
Today, the Federal Open Market Committee decided to lower our policy interest rate by a quarter percentage point.
The decision marking the third straight rate cut from the central bank after months of leaving rates steady.
This was a very difficult meeting, I think, for the Federal Reserve. There was a lot of evidence that suggested that, yeah, a rate cut was, needed, but there was also a lot of evidence that suggested a rate cut wasn't needed.
The decision was not unanimous, marking the fourth straight meeting featuring dissent from at least one Fed board member. It's part of a balancing act to carry out the Fed's dual mandate to keep prices steady and support a strong jobs market, says economics professor Thomas Stockwell.
They're more worried about keeping the unemployment side of the equation in check and not letting the labor market, get much worse than it is right now.
New October data out Tuesday showed employers laid off almost 1.9 million workers that month, the most since January of 2023.
Everyone around the table at the FOMC agrees that inflation is too high and that we want it to come down, and agrees that the labor market has softened and that there's further risk.
For consumers, another cut means the cost of borrowing money could come down. That could help drive down interest rates on home equity loans and credit cards. But it risks fanning inflation, making it more challenging for the Trump administration to promote a new focus on affordability.
I have no higher priority than making America affordable again. That's what we're going to do.
The president has touted his work on the economy, but many Americans are still feeling the pinch of inflation. More than 9 in 10 U.S. adults say inflation is still an issue.
Now, it's important to note the board had to make this decision flying relatively blind. They're missing a lot of the economic, inflation, and employment data that they should have gotten but has been delayed or just hasn't come out at all because of the government shutdown, Maritza.
So, Maura, we always get these decisions, and then we hear from business reporters like yourself who have to really try to read the tea leaves from what the chair, Jerome Powell, said afterward and when he answered questions from reporters. So what was your takeaway? Do we get a sense about what's going to happen next year?
I mean, it would be so much easier just to take out my crystal ball, right, than having to decipher and tap dance around what Chair Powell says. He's a very intentional speaker, but he did say that it's unusual to see the persistent tension that we're seeing on the Federal Reserve's dual mandate of managing employment and inflation. That's something that has been particularly tricky for him and for the team, quite frankly. And so looking ahead, he said that they're going to have to be careful and very methodical looking through the data that they do get, that delayed data from the government shutdown going into January. But from the report that we got in which members express what they are forecasting for 2026, it appears that the board is forecasting just one rate cut for the entirety of 2026. And Powell even said in the press conference today that they do anticipate, at least with the data they have right now, that the board should hold in terms of not being as active with the rate cuts next year, Maritza.
Thank you so much. Outside the Fed, we appreciate you, Maura. And right now we want to go to economist Thomas Honig, who joins us now. He's a distinguished senior fellow at the Mercatus Center at George Mason University and a former vice chairman of the FDIC. So, Thomas, I want to get your initial takeaway here from today's announcement. Any surprises for you?
Well, there were no real surprises in the rate cut, down another quarter of a point. What did strike me, and I was surprised that the reporters in the room didn't ask questions about, was the announcement that they were going to increase their reserve base by $40 billion a month going forward from here. And the chairman said that had nothing to do with monetary policy, but frankly, it has a lot to do with monetary policy. It's a very significant increase in bank reserves. That's stimulative overall. So that part of it was a bit of a surprise and also disappointing that there weren't any questions about that.
Okay, so I'll ask you a question about that. For those of us who don't really get into the weeds in economics, what does that mean for us? What does that mean?
Well, it means that basically that there's more stimulus in the economy. There's more basic money, we call it, base money out there. That should stimulate. And I think for those on the committee who are most concerned about rising inflation, this should be a little bit of a red flag that they're doing that. Even in the comments, the chairman said that normally, growth rate, where at the balance sheet we're increasing half of that. it would be sufficient to allow the economy to grow at its long run growth rate. So this is more stimulus than you would expect, and part of the explanation given was that there's going to be tax payments coming up in April, and this will build help protect any surprises in terms of drawdowns on bank reserves to pay for those taxes, which seems a little bit of a stretch for an explanation. So I think it's more stimulative than it's being described as, and I think it also raises the risk on the inflation side of the balance between stable prices and maximum employment.
I've heard economists say that this is a really tricky economy to analyze and predict, and we heard Chair Powell talk about kind of that tension between the two goals. The president gives himself an A+++ on the economy. From your perspective, from where you're sitting, what would you grade this economy?
This economy is probably a B-rated economy. Number one, it is stable. It is growing. Not as much as people would like, perhaps, but it is a generally balanced economy. Inflation is too high. Unemployment remains low. So while they're anticipating higher unemployment, even while they look at inflation well above their target. So I would give it a B, and I would be more concerned about the inflation outlook as we go forward from here, especially given the cut today and given the increase in the bank reserves.
Would you, if you were on the board, would you have voted for the rate cut we saw today?
I probably would not have voted for it for the reasons that I've just given, and I don't know. I assume there was more discussion about this than the vote reflects. I hope there was, at least, because there is a trade-off here between inflation and what they perceive as risk to the employment numbers, and I don't think the explanation around that was as good as it might have been and as good as it should have been.
We did hear Jerome Powell mention tariffs and the effects on tariffs quite a bit. Yeah. What do you think the impact of that will be? What do you project or predict any policy change as a result of those comments?
No, I don't. I think the tariffs have been much less significant in terms of their impact, in terms of the effect on consumption and the effects on prices, although they're real. Don't mean to dismiss them, but I think far less significant than people anticipated. And I don't know that justifies either an increase or a decrease. If you look at where the economy is, and then you look at the interest rates before they cut rates, if you think about it being, say, the Fed funds rate before they cut was 3.75%. Inflation was 3%. That means real interest rates. That is the interest rates less the inflation was around 0.75 percentage point. That's a fairly easy interest rate policy, and now it's even lower than that. It's closer to 1.5. So I would say, that's closer to 0.5% real. And so there's a lot hard to understand in terms of the explanation for this cut and for the increase in the reserves, the base money that I mentioned, the $40 billion a month. So it leaves me a little bit in the skeptical in terms of the need for this policy cut at this time.
Okay, so I know that you probably love when reporters ask you to give financial advice, but I am wondering what you would say to savers or fixed income investors who fear that these cuts will erode returns, especially as we see inflation still above target.
Well, it's a good question and one hard to answer. Normally, I would say, yeah, you should be concerned about it because if you're a saver, you probably are going to receive less, except that you may have noted, and I think maybe it was mentioned, I don't know, that since the Fed has started cutting, the longer-term 10-year yield, which affects mortgage rates and so forth, has actually gone up. So if you're a saver and you are willing to go out on a limb a bit in terms of the 10-year rate, you are probably better off now than you were. But I think you weigh that against what the outlook for inflation is. I would not go long on the yield curve if I were a saver at this moment. But I don't think that lowering the rates hurts as far as inflation outlook goes, because it increases the odds. But as a saver, I would say wait and see just how it's going to affect you along the so-called yield curve.
Okay, former president of the Kansas City Fed, former VP of the FDIC, and economist Thomas Honig, thank you so much.
Coming up on Today As It Happened.
I'm John Matteries. Clothing, jewelry, household items, the costs really add up this time of year, but I'll show you how you can find them for a lot less, maybe even for free.
We have only 3 weeks away from massive and devastating cliff for millions of Americans. This is life and death for people. This is having a decent life or a life where you can hardly cope if you don't get the health care that you need.
I'm in favor of doing whatever it takes to try to reach a solution on this. And I would just urge the party's leadership, the guys who control the floor. Senator Finn controls the floor. Senator Schumer obviously leads his caucus. I think that they ought to get into a room and start hammering out a compromise.
Welcome back to Today As It Happened. I'm Patrick Terpstra. Let's jump right back into our rundown of our top stories of the day.
Before you pay full price for a jacket, some jewelry, or a household item, hold on a second. You may be able to find it for a lot less, or if you're lucky, even free.
I found this aloe that was very neglected, but there was probably at least 50, if not 100, aloe pups.
Where some see a dying plant, Lauren Click saw opportunity.
I can repot all of them individually and add a bow, and they make for really easy gifts.
Click, who also works in sustainability, is a member of her local Buy Nothing group. These are online groups formed primarily on Facebook where people post what they don't need so others can pick up those items for free. She picked up bulletin boards that someone else wanted out of their house.
Someone has what you want and they think it's junk, and then you're exactly searching for that item.
Sometimes it's just the feeling of giving it away to somebody who really is going to use them.
Lenora O'Keefe is a Buy Nothing group member and professional organizer. She says local online groups are a great way to get free stuff and even experiences.
Sometimes people give tickets away to events that they can't go,
To declutter, O'Keefe has given away items like yoga gear, these electric griddles, and home decor. Other online resources for free or low-cost stuff are FreeCycle and OfferUp. For low-cost stuff in person,
gorgeous little faux pearl necklace.
$10.
Thrift and secondhand stores give a little taste of luxury at low prices.
You're going to be able to pick up something that's a designer label for anywhere from half to a third or even a quarter of its original price.
For totally free, check for Buy Nothing or free swap groups in your community.
It can save some people some money, and then again, just not go to landfill.
And that way you don't waste your money. John Matteries, Scripps News Group.
Thank you for joining us on Today As It Happened. I'm Patrick Terpstra. Have a great Wednesday night.